Xie Baichen, the young master of the White Island family, exuded a wild and unrestrained aura all over his body. He is the hottest man in the summer city, and every time he watches a show, he can win a little beauty that falls from the sky. She is a beauty disaster, he knew from the beginning, but he prefers to watch her act coquettishly and playfully, trying to please her to the fullest. He doesn't believe it. Being calm like him can still make her harm the country and the people. Until one day, the wind by the seaside lifted a woman's long hair, and the shadow of helicopter propellers imprinted on the ground accentuated her heroic demeanor. Yan Danqing looked at him with a charming smile as usual. In the next moment, she accepted all her tenderness and coldly ordered. Tie Xie Shao up and take him away. Xie Baichen. Pseudo scumbag versus fake vase, double clean, feel free to enter the pit, keywords of the novel. Pete getting married without pop-ups, Pete getting married. Download the complete TXT collection, and read the latest chapters on Pete getting married. Chapter 1. Your woman was kidnapped. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Your woman was kidnapped in the scorching summer. The afternoon wind gently brushes the willow branches along the banks of Luyun Pavilion. The lake is full of ripples, and as the fresh breeze passes through the trees, it carries a hint of mist, dispelling the dryness inside the house. On the bluestone steps, there was a faint sound of hurried footsteps. Xiacheng wiped the sweat off his forehead, and before he could catch his breath, he ran up the third floor. He was so anxious that he forgot to take the elevator when he remembered the phone call he received at noon. Taking 2 or 3 steps, Xiacheng arrived at the CEO's exclusive lounge. He lightly knocked on the door, but no one answered. He pushed it again, and the door unexpectedly opened. Mr. Xie. Xiacheng poked his head and didn't see anyone in the outer room, so he boldly sneaked in. A spacious wicker chair was placed by the window in the interior, separated by a jade bead curtain hanging. The man fell asleep comfortably at noon, covered in an extremely thin air-conditioning blanket. The gentle breeze brushed against his cold white skin, and the 2 layers of dense fan-like eyelashes on his lower eyelids trembled gently. The man's figure was slender and thin, half leaning and half lying, like a pine tree. There was movement coming from the outer room, and he furrowed his brows slightly. His slender fingers tightened for a moment before continuing to sleep. Xiacheng lifted the curtain, leaned down slightly, adjusted his breath, and shouted, "Mr. Xie, it's not good." Xie Baichen tisked and frowned displeasedly. What's a big deal? He doesn't like to be disturbed during rest, and when the sky falls, he has to wait for him to wake up before he can handle it mentally, right? Xiacheng noticed Xie Baichen's emotions and spoke more cautiously. Your woman has been kidnapped. This should be a big deal, right? If it weren't for suddenly receiving a call from the kidnappers during lunch, he wouldn't have dropped his chopsticks and rushed to beg for pleasure. Sure enough, after listening, Xie Baichen's eyelids suddenly opened, and a few strands of confusion remained in Zhang Hei's restless pupils. Xiacheng saw Xie Baichen open his eyes and speculated that he had taken it seriously. He quickly emphasized, the kidnappers just said on the phone that you should personally take the money to save the person. No one can replace them. Xie Baichen said, oh, and elegantly closed his thin eyelids again. Got it. Got it, then what? Is there no more text left? Xiacheng was a bit confused, standing in place at a loss. You make me think. Xie Baichen pressed his fingers on his temples, looking very lazy. What do you think? Xiacheng was inexplicable. The woman was abducted and had to go to save her quickly, right? What else does this need to be considered? Xie Baichen let out a long sigh of relief and said, I'm thinking, which woman of mine was kidnapped? This question knocked Xiacheng out. Look at him being confused, only focusing on reporting messages and forgetting to ask the names of the hostages. Mr. Xie is charming and charming, a person who shuttles through the flowers all year round. As a personal assistant, he knows several of his regular female companions, let alone those who are only familiar with each other. Suddenly, the kidnappers say that Mr. Xie's woman has been kidnapped, which really makes it unclear which one it is. I'll call and ask. Xiacheng looked embarrassed. Xie Baichen waved his hand, changed his posture, and continued to rest. It was already 15 minutes later when Xiacheng came in. Xie Baichen has already gotten up, washed his face, and is sitting on the coffee table in the outer room drinking tea. The newly sent biluacun has a refreshing and sweet taste, which he really likes. Xiacheng hurriedly walked in and reported quickly, "I've asked clearly. It's Miss Yan Dangqinjian, a little model you met last month. She has been in her hands for over 2 hours now." When she heard on the phone, she was frightened and faintly cried. The kidnapper spoke up. "If you don't show up in an hour, you can directly scratch her face. If you call the police, you can just tear up the ticket. The other party is very aggressive, not like they're joking." Xie Baichen nodded and raised his hand to tease the peony parrot kept by the window, saying, "Where is the person now?" "In an abandoned residential building in the south of the city." "Okay." Xie Baichen casually added Xiaomi to the parrot's food box, "I'll go in a little while." Later. Xiacheng was completely confused. Xie Baichen nodded at the tea set in silence and said, "Didn't you see that I haven't finished my tea yet? Such a good thing is wasted. You should also sit down and have a drink. Look at the sweat on your head, it's really affecting your image." Xiacheng's throat was choked and he hesitated to speak. "Don't worry, I will go. Driving to the south of the city here is very fast," Xie Baichen said, and poured himself a cup of green tea. Facing the cool breeze blowing from the lake, he savored it leisurely. After drinking a cup of tea, the man finally got up. Entering the inner room, he changed his clothes again and shook his head while wearing cufflinks. "Xiacheng, do you think I have a hard life? I finally came to Luyunxian to patrol a store and take a rest. I encountered this kind of troublesome situation. Is it easy for me to work all day? These kidnappers are also too ungrateful." Xiacheng replied, "Yes," on his mouth, but muttered inwardly. Miss Yan was worried and stayed in the residential building for almost 3 hours. Is it easy for her? You are still here leisurely. However, he could only keep these words to himself and dared not speak them out loud. The two walked outside the door, and the doorman had already driven the car over. Before getting into the car, Xie Baichen approached the manager of Luyunxian again and said seriously, "In the past 6 months, Luyunxian's business card couldn't go up again until last month. You should reflect on it and come up with a plan. The profits in the clubhouse area can still be seen, but the expansion of entertainment and the current industry are inferior." Under Xie Baichen's gaze, the manager broke out in a cold sweat and said, "Yes, I will immediately convene a meeting with the management and submit the plan to you within a week." Xie Baichen nodded, "I will be working at the Xie branch soon. You can take it directly over there." "Yes." Xie Group is headquartered in Bai Island and has branches in more than 10 important cities across the country. The business in Xiacheng is mainly managed by Xie Baichen, the eldest grandson of the Xie family, while Lu Yunxian is his own private property established in Xiacheng. Xiacheng, standing in front of the car, wanted to remind Xie Baichen several times that there was still someone waiting to be rescued, but he heard the master talking about the matter and didn't dare to interrupt, so he could only act in a hurry. When Xie Baichen finished explaining all the matters, there was only half an hour left. The man gracefully got into the car, raised his chin forward, and casually said, "Let's go, save someone." Before Xiacheng stepped on the gas pedal, he added, "Drive slowly, safety comes first." Xiacheng. If Miss Yan knew about Mr. Xie's series of actions this afternoon, she wouldn't have to wait for the kidnappers to take action. She would have been so angry that she would have knocked herself to death. However, it's also true that people like Mr. Xie have too many women around him, which one is what he truly cares about. It's already very embarrassing to have the time to go to the scene. No matter how much you ask, you might just say goodbye and break up. Xiacheng sighed as he drove, taking advantage of Xie Baichen's lack of attention and secretly accelerating his speed. End of this chapter. Chapter 2, Why Don't You Just Tie Me Up? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 3. Double 11 is not as discounted as you are. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 3. Double 11 is not as discounted as you are. Xie Baichen's call immediately made Yan Danqing's heart ache and uncomfortable. Thinking of the hardships she had endured in the hands of the kidnappers, and then the bargaining in the video call, the woman's eyes turned red twice as she had already put on makeup and couldn't see the contours clearly. Thank you, sir. She bit her lip and pounced towards the man's embrace with great reluctance. Xie Baichen quietly opened his body, successfully avoiding his white shirt from being spoiled by various colors on the woman's face. He opened the back seat door with one hand, and Yan Danqing pounced directly into the back seat. Xiacheng, who followed closely, looked speechless. He took 3 or 2 steps forward to help Xie Baichen block the door. Just as he was about to wait for the man to get in the car, he saw him smoothly close the back seat and gestured to help him open the passenger door. Xiacheng was stunned and said, "Mr. Xie won't sit with Miss Yan." Xie Baichen gave a small fan and said, "Forget it, I won't be able to adapt to her terrifying face for a while." "Are you afraid when you first went up?" Xiacheng's eyes were sharp, and he saw the expression on the woman in the back seat. His hair furrowed and he chuckled, How could I be afraid? Miss Yan, the beauty of the country is so beautiful, he. Xie Baichen narrowed his eyes slightly and said, "Do you think it's beautiful like this? You're really not picky. I originally wanted to eat, but now I feel a bit off. You can just take me to the office. By the way, remember to buy me 2 sleeping pills later to avoid nightmares at night." Xiacheng broke into a cold sweat and pointed behind Xie Baichen, saying, "Thank you. Mr. Xie, the car window is not closed." Xie Baichen turned around and saw Yan Danqing snorting coldly, pretending to turn her head away. Xie Baichen. He still thought that the car's sound insulation effect was good. It's okay for him to say a few heartfelt words, but to his surprise, the woman heard them all clearly. "Forget it, I'm too lazy to bother." "Get in the car," Xie Baichen said, turning sideways into the passenger seat without any intention of explaining a few words in the back seat. Xiacheng faced embarrassment and quickly stepped on the gas pedal. As the car drove out of the abandoned residential area, Yan Danqing tearfully cried out, "I've never seen someone as heartless as you. They were kidnapped by kidnappers and their lives are at stake. You didn't even show up for 2 or 3 hours." "I'm busy." Xie Baichen placed his elbow on the window, enjoying the sunset in a good mood. Upon hearing this, Yan Danqing felt a little flustered and said, "No matter how busy you are, how can you ensure the safety of others? When they are threatened, all they think about is you. Fortunately, I am full of confidence, thinking that you will definitely be anxious." "Who knew that left and right could not wait?" sobbing. She said, feeling aggrieved again, tears streaming down like broken threads. Xiacheng thought that if Miss Yan knew that Mr. Xie was still sleeping in the afternoon and had even brewed a cup of tea after waking up, she would probably have the heart to jump out of the car. This woman still cannot rely on men. You think you are a treasure in his heart, but he just treats you as the slightly more beautiful grass among the flowers. Didn't I come from behind? Xie Baichen smiled faintly, and even before the kidnappers tore up the tickets. Look at you now, you're unharmed. Apart from whitening your makeup, what else is there to lose? It's okay for Xie Baichen not to mention this, but when he did, Yan Danqing became even saddened and said, "What are you saying? Don't worry about their safety when you come, just bargain when you come up, don't even pay 50 million yuan. Are you okay? Why should I pay 50 million for something that can be done with 500,000 yuan? Am I only worth 500,000 yuan in Xie Shao's heart? Yan Danqing tearfully said, I really wanted to die when I heard Xiacheng and the kidnappers talk to each other. From 50 million to 500,000 yuan, the double 11 is not as discounted as you are. Puff. Xiacheng, who had been driving silently without speaking, couldn't help but burst out laughing. Xiacheng, why are you laughing? Yan Danqing glared at me with panda eyes. You Xie Shao doesn't treat me well, do you also follow in trampling on me? This hat is buttoned up too big. Xiacheng quickly withdrew his smile and declared, Miss Yan, I absolutely didn't mean that. Yan Danqing snorted coldly, twisted her body, and angrily retreated into the corner of the back seat. Xie Baichen looked at his watch and saw that the woman had enough trouble. He had a good temper and asked, should we take you home now or what? I won't go home, Yan Danqing pouted and moaned coquettishly. They were scared by today's kidnapping. They would be scared when they were alone in the apartment at night. How many little sisters will accompany you? No, Yan Danqing leaned forward and bit his ear at Xie Baichen. I want Xie Shao to accompany me. Su Jingqing coughed twice, pretending not to see the seduction from the side. Hey, I don't understand what women think. Isn't the humiliation in the afternoon enough? At this moment, it is still eagerly pasted up. Xie Baichen and Yan Danqing parted ways and lowered their eyes, saying, I still have to go to the company to do something. It might be boring if you go with me. I'm going, right? Yan Danqing was coquettish and unwilling to compromise. When did I disturb you while you were working? Seeing Xie Baichen silent, she pretended not to arrive soon. Maybe there's still one hidden in the office, don't you dare me to bump into it. Xie Baichen thought to himself, even if I hide 100, I'm not afraid you'll see it. Can I still cover it up with you? However, he thought it over and didn't refuse the woman anymore. With his slender fingers, he pointed to the control panel and said to Xiacheng, let's go directly to the company. Yes. The Xie family started on Bai Island, not far from Xia City. The old man Xiacheng started from scratch and worked hard to create a world. Xiacheng had 2 sons, and his youngest son Xie Lin passed away early. The group was all managed by his eldest son Xie, while the business in Xia City was assigned to his eldest grandson Xie Baichen. Unlike the quaint and elegant style of Liangshuan, the Xie branch is located in the busiest seaside international square in Summer City. The 18-story steel building stands tall and towering, with a luxurious and serene black and gray color scheme. Even though Xiecheng is a foreign company, its momentum and presence are no less impressive than those of local tycoons. At this moment, it is time to finish work and there is a high flow of people in front of the company. Yan Danqing thought about her face and knocked on Su Zheng's seat, saying, go straight up the executive ladder from the underground garage, don't let anyone see me. Xie Baichen tacitly agreed and then joked, why, you also have self-awareness. Do you know what you're looking like now? Yan Danqing was coquettish. You still said that if your bargaining goes out, I won't have to work in the modeling circle tomorrow. After saying that, she again grimaced, those little sisters are going to kill me with laughter. Xie Baichen lightly tapped on the car window with his long fingers and casually comforted, this matter cannot be spread. Only 4 people know about it, and the kidnappers naturally won't say anything. Su Zheng's mouth is also very tight. If you don't tell the rest, I won't tell. Who would know? The implication is that as long as you don't flaunt yourself everywhere, miss, that Xie's young master saved you, no one will know about this embarrassing matter. If you can't control yourself, then don't blame me. Yan Danqing didn't meet Xie Baichen for the first time, so she naturally understood his meaning. She snorted lightly and turned her head to one side. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. One bottle of makeup remover. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 4. One bottle of makeup remover. The CEO's exclusive elevator is directly connected to the office and cannot be used without Xie Baichen's fingerprint. As soon as Yan Danqing entered the door, she impatiently looked in the mirror. Ha! Not to mention that Xie Baichen would worry about having nightmares. Even she herself suspected that there was something wrong with the mirror. Xie Shao. Yan Danqing consciously kept some distance and didn't want to scare Xie Baichen. He stayed in that haunted place all afternoon, his head and body covered in dust. I'll borrow your lounge to use it, don't you mind? Xie Baichen was also busy and didn't have time to pay attention to her. He pointed to the compartment behind him without lifting his eyelids and said, "Go ahead, I'll let Xiacheng buy you clean clothes later." Okay. Yan Danqing smiled, and before entering the restroom, she wrote down the size of her clothes on a piece of paper and stuffed it into Xiacheng's hand. I like red and black, but I can't find a suitable one. White is also fine. Don't choose childish colors like pink, blue, and pink. I don't like them, and even Xie Shao doesn't like them. Xiacheng held the note, nodded and said hello, then turned his head and left the office before silently sighing. If you get something good, start making it. When will this woman have some backbone when she buys clothes and is picky and likes others? Yan Danqing saw Xie Baichen start working, so she went to the restroom on her own. She had not known Xie Baichen long ago and had visited Luyun Pavilion once and Xie's branch twice, but it was still her first time in the break room. It has to be said that the furnishings here are so complete that they are breathtaking. A 1.8-meter large bed is placed by the window, and the bay window has been transformed into a small bar. On one side, there are several bottles of high-end red wine, and on the other side, a simple coffee machine is installed. A few mini green plants were laid in the corner by the window, bringing some vitality to the room. There is a bamboo and rattan hanging chair hanging at the end of the bed, and cotton and linen pillows are placed all the way from the chair to the carpet. When the weather is sunny or it is drizzling, listening to the wind, reading, and thinking on the hanging chair are all very comfortable. This man is quite good at enjoying life. Yan Danqing pursed her lips, swayed her small body, and walked into the bathroom. The bathroom is very large, without a bathtub, but the shower room is quite spacious. The men's shower gel and face cream are neatly placed, and the bathroom is also filled with the quiet smell of red sandalwood fragrance. Yan Danqing locked the door and went to the bathroom mirror to tidy up her cat-like face. She casually glanced at the wash basin and her eyes instantly widened. Makeup remover. There are also eye and lip specific ones. She picked up a bottle and took a closer look, and sure enough, she saw it right. Oh, this bathroom has definitely been used by women, otherwise Xie Baichen, a big man who doesn't put on makeup, why do he put on makeup remover? Yan Danqing instantly felt disgusted in the entire bathroom and instinctively wanted to throw away all the bottles and jars. She did whatever she wanted, picked up the lid of the makeup remover with two thin fingers, and in a perfect parabolic motion, threw the bottle towards the farthest trash can from her. Before the bottle landed, she suddenly changed her mind. I saw a nimble figure, the trash can was neatly kicked open, and the makeup remover landed firmly in the woman's palm just 1 second before it landed. Oh, don't be impulsive. What if Xie Baichen's other little brat finds out something is missing and encourages him to come and argue with him? She had been digging for ideas and had been dormant for several years before walking to this man's side, so she couldn't afford to fall short. Yan Danqing angrily withdrew her hand and frowned as she twisted open the lid. Ha! The seal inside hasn't been opened, it seems to be a new bottle. Then she's welcome. She also needs to use it. Maybe next time she will buy a bottle and put it back exactly the same. So, Yan Danqing felt at ease and found a cotton pad on the wash basin, carefully wiping off the residual makeup on her face in front of the mirror, and then went into the bathroom to take a good shower. She felt much more comfortable after washing away the fine dust. That abandoned residential building is really not a place for people to stay. Yan Danqing wrapped her body in a towel and dried her hair before leaving the bathroom. The cloakroom was connected to the bathroom, and the woman pushed open the sliding door. She casually picked up a black shirt for men and put it on her body, then picked up a bottle of moisturizer. She jumped onto the soft bed and slowly applied it to her skin. A light fruity aroma, quite pleasant. Xie Baichen handled his task well, turned off his computer, stood up at the entrance of the lounge, and knocked on the door. "Please come in." The woman's voice was very lazy, like a cat just waking up from sleep. Xie Baichen pushed the door open, and a vast expanse of beautiful spring light spread before his eyes. His bedding was made of silk fabric with three-dimensional patterns on it. At this moment, Yan Danqing knelt on the bed, her snow-white satin-like skin blending seamlessly with the silk. She wore his shirt without his consent, as if deliberately trying to stimulate him. She still chose the most seductive black. The shirt was only slightly below her thighs, and the buttons were not properly fastened. The collarbone exposed at the neckline was slightly pink in color. Yan Danqing raised her eyes slightly and glanced at Xie Baichen, snorting coldly. She continued to lower her head and slowly applied the moisturizer in her palm onto her delicate calf. The lingering anger in the afternoon had not yet dissipated, and now seeing him staring at him intently, I insisted on showing him a face. Xie Baichen knew that the woman's little temper had come up again, and he didn't speak. He just leaned against the door frame to enjoy the beautiful scenery with a smile on his face. Danqing, the woman who washed away the messy makeup on her face, is truly one in 100 beauties. Her face was as white as jade, about the size of a palm. Her jian pupils were as expressive as autumn water, and her thin lips had a pink cherry blossom color. With a slight smile, she could still see shallow dimples. Xie Baichen stood and watched for a while. Seeing that Yan Danqing had no intention of paying attention to him, he walked in at a pace and sat down by the bed, saying, "You made a fuss about coming. You were quite well behaved just now. Why did you take a shower and show off? I just saw the bottle of makeup remover in your bathroom, remembered my experience this afternoon, and felt that I was not as good as your group of little fairies. I was angry with myself." Yan Danqing turned her back to him and continued to apply moisturizer, but her movements deliberately slowed down. "What the hell?" Xie Baichen sneered coldly, "That's for you. You didn't even open the makeup remover without looking at it. Stop talking." Yan Danqing turned back and her almond eyes narrowed coquettishly. "You didn't know I was coming, and you didn't plan to let me come. How could you prepare makeup remover for me? Don't use sweet words to coax me." Xie Baichen was speechless, but his tone was a bit idle. "Since I know it's to coax you, isn't it okay to be a bit coaxed? How is my private life? You didn't only know today. Since you chose to post it on Baba, don't worry about what you have or don't have. It's interesting to find trouble with yourself." Yan Danqing was so angry that she almost suffered from myocardial infarction. She bit her lips white. As soon as she uttered a "you," she was interrupted by a knock on the door. "Mr. Xie, Miss Yan's clothes have been bought." Su Jing saw the two of them in the lounge and dared not enter casually. "I understand." Xie Baichen responded and stood up to the angry woman, "I'll take your clothes with you." Yan Danqing ignored. 2 minutes later, Xie Baichen returned carrying a bag. The well-known design studio, Gaoding, with its colorful designs, is pre-sale internally and has not yet been launched. Xie Baichen threw the bag at the bedside and asked with a smile, "Do you want to change it yourself or should I help you?" End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Pride and Favor, Don't Even Think About It. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Pride and Favor, Don't Even Think About It. Yan Danqing tugged at the bag and said angrily, "I'll change it myself." You treat me like that, I don't have to look. He then got up and walked towards the cloakroom. Don't worry, there's a gift for you. Xie Baichen's warm palm pressed down on her round shoulder in time. Yan Danqing paused and raised her willow eyebrows without looking back. Xie Baichen lowered his head and opened the purple golden velvet jewelry box that was brought in with his clothes. He took out a platinum diamond necklace with his long fingers, bent down and carefully put it on Yan Danqing's neck, then fastened the buckle. Do you like it or not? His voice was deep, and his breath blew in her ear. The sunset has already set in the west, and under the night, the city's lights reflect the brilliant light between her slender neck. Even through the reflection of the floor-to-ceiling glass window, Yan Danqing can clearly see the transparency and radiance of the diamond pendant. This quality, at least 7 figures, should go up. She gently stroked the slightly cool diamond face of the pendant, recalling his stinginess in front of the residential building in the afternoon. Her thin eyelids lifted lightly, and her long eyelashes swept down her eyelids like a small fan. Why did you suddenly become more generous to me? Shouldn't this chain just be borrowed from me to play with? Xie Baichen chuckled and said, It's for you. Oh. Are you willing to spend money now? That's for sure. Xie Baichen's slender fingers brushed against her erect nose. You saved your life, so it's worth investing in your beauty. After he finished speaking, he casually glanced at her delicate figure. If you unfortunately hang up in the afternoon, I'll give this necklace to someone else. Anyway, your name is not written on it. You. Yan Danqing's face turned pale with anger, instinctively wanting to take off the necklace and smash someone. Before taking action, he hesitated again. It's a pity to have smashed it. This necklace belongs to her now, and if it's broken, it's her own loss. Humph, there's no need to struggle with money. Yan Danqing lowered her cherry lips and got up to change clothes in the cloakroom. The man's gaze followed her as she closed the door to the closet, her thin lips curling up almost imperceptibly. Ask her to do it. Yan Danqing changed into clothes and came out, while Xie Baichen leaned diagonally on the bed. At night, there's a gathering of friends at the One Color Entertainment Club. Are you going or not? He lowered his head and pressed his phone, not glancing at the woman. Yan Danqing sits in front of the mirror and slowly opens his handbag, takes out liquid foundation and smears it carefully. What do you think? How do I know? In theory, you want to go, but weren't you startled by being kidnapped this afternoon? So I'll ask in advance. If you go, I'll have Xiacheng call the club to order some of your favorite dishes. If you don't go, I'll contact other women as soon as possible. Yan Danqing gritted her teeth and wanted to smash the man's face with powder to pretend to be a gentleman. All of her small actions fell into Xie Baichen's eyes. The man didn't care at all, just took his own watch and said while wearing it, "You were kidnapped and asked me to redeem it. I went there. When I came back to argue about coming to the company, I also agreed. I gave you a diamond necklace to make you happy, but if you still show your face, I wouldn't like to look at it. It's better for a woman to restrain herself." Yan Danqing's makeup movement stopped, her fingers gripping the powder box without saying a word. "I'll put it first. Follow me and make a fuss. If it goes too far, let's go our separate ways. There are so many beautiful women in the world, one more than one, and one less than one. If you want to go to the club with me later, it's best to be obedient. Otherwise, you can sit here and put on makeup all night." When Xie Baichen said these things, he always wore a proper smile, but his tone was cold, even a fool could hear it. His meaning is very clear, he is proud of being spoiled, don't even think about it. After Xie Baichen finished speaking, he didn't give Yan Danqing time to consider. He turned his slender body and walked straight towards the outside office. After only 2 steps, someone grabbed my sleeve. Xie Baichen lowered his eyes and saw Yan Danqing drooping her head, with no sharp spikes left from her body. "Thank you, I'm going," she said softly, her tone becoming more obedient, her big eyes blinking and pleasing. Xie Baichen brushed aside her touch without any difficulty, smiled faintly, pointed to the cosmetics scattered on the table, and spoke softly, "Then hurry up, I'll wait for you in the car." The woman dared not continue to make noise and turned her head to accelerate her makeup movements. Under the night sky and water are one color, with a hint of extravagance emanating from the dazzling lights. People who come to Xia City with the same color of water and sky are either rich or noble. Ordinary people just bow their heads and walk by, afraid to take a look in the face, afraid of offending the powerful. When the black Bugatti stopped at the Fountain Square, the gatekeeper who had already been waiting there approached with a smile on his face and bowed to greet him. Su Jing got off the car, opened the rear door, and waited for the exquisitely dressed man and woman to step out before throwing the key to the doorman to park the car. Yan Danqing has not been in Xia City for a long time, and it is even the first time she has come to Shuishanyi. The magnificent architecture in front of us is a symbol of certain status and status. She held her handbag, stopped and looked up, the brilliant starlight reflected in her clear eyes, with ripples faintly visible. The night was too dark, so dark that one couldn't see the depth of the light in her eyes. The excitement and lament of a girl from an extraordinary background when she first saw her extravagant life. It's not like finding a support and being able to enter and exit luxury with pride. On the contrary, the light was calm, so calm that it seemed as if what she saw was nothing but vanity, while she had a broader distance. Xie Baichen took 2 steps and heard the sound of high heels disappearing from behind. When he turned around, he happened to see Yan Danqing's small face, which had been reflected in a honey color. "What's wrong?" he lowered his eyes and asked, with a faint smile in his eyes. "It's nothing," Yan Danqing snapped back to her senses. "It's just that she was intimidated by the luxury of this club." Xie Baichen laughed and said, "There's a lot of fun inside. I'll take you around later. However, the environment here is complex and muddy. If you're alone, don't run around." Yan Danqing quickly cleverly hugged Xie Baichen's arm and smiled chinchi, saying, "I will follow Xie Shao and won't run around." This move is extremely useful for Xie Baichen. Whether she is a clever and intelligent girl or not, a slight warning will make her look good. Xie Baichen pinched her pink cheeks and raised his chin, "Go in." At this moment, the lobby manager happened to be talking to someone in the front hall. As soon as Xie Baichen came in, he quickly put down what he was doing and greeted him with a smile. "Xie Shao, have you come over?" Xie Baichen nodded slightly. "Did they arrive first?" The lobby manager naturally knew who Xie Baichen was talking about and nodded and said, "Here we are. I have arranged for the 2 gentlemen to enter the exclusive private room. Do you think we should serve the dishes first or what?" "Serve the dishes, my little girl is hungry." Xie Baichen glanced at Yan Danqing and walked towards the elevator. The lobby manager had a keen eye, and seeing Yan Danqing's fair skin and beautiful appearance, he guessed that it was probably Xie Baichen's new love. Okay, I'll give orders now." Su Tezu called early in the morning and said that Miss Yan likes light dishes. "I specially asked the kitchen to prepare steamed scallops, pine nuts, and shrimp, all of which are nourishing. "You're up to it," Xie Baichen said lightly as he entered the elevator and saw that the lobby manager wanted to follow him. "You go ahead and get busy, I'll just go into the private room myself." "Hey, okay." The lobby manager stopped and watched with a smile as the elevator door slowly closed. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. This slip is the standard princess hug. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. This slip is the standard princess hug. As she approached the private room, Yan Danqing couldn't help but ask, "Who is Xie Shao gathering with?" "Xie Baichen, you know another one, Xiang Qinzhou, the 3rd son of the Xiang family." Yan Danqing nodded. She was able to get to know Xie Baichen well, thanks to Xie Baichen's matchmaking and bridging. Xiang Qinzhou, who she had never seen or heard of before, was the youngest young master of an old family in Xiacheng. His two older brothers were both elites in the industry, and he was so happy that he read and read again. After graduating from his doctoral degree, he went to teach at a prestigious school. During the conversation, several people had already arrived at the private room. As the door opened, the two men sitting on the sofa looked at each other. Different from the lights outside, Xie Baichen's private room is brightly lit and elegantly decorated. There is a solid wood bookcase on the side of the French window. At that time, when booking an exclusive private room, Xie Baichen paid out of his own pocket to renovate the entire room's layout, removing the dazzling ball lights above his head, and expanding the bar into a 6-seater dining table. With this effort, a place where he was drunk and laughed became an elegant place. According to Xie Baichen, without renovation, his friend Xiang Qinzhou will not come. That shelf of books is specially prepared for Xiang Qinzhou and others to pass their leisure time. Xie Baichen stood up first and walked over with a smile. "Baichen, why did you come so late?" Xie Baichen pondered and looked at Yan Danqing, who was a little bird who was affectionate. Accompanying a beautiful woman to get angry, isn't it just finished? Am I coming over now? Yan Danqing instinctively wanted to talk back, but she remembered what Xie Baichen had said in the restroom and swallowed it. She said in a muffled voice, "I'll go wash my hands," and then left the man and went to the restroom. Xie Baichen watched the interaction between the two with a faint smile and guessed, "Why, this little girl doesn't want your heart. It's okay, I just did some things and didn't suppress her. I could go up in the sky." Xie Baichen's smile deepened as he remembered the scene of the kidnappers hijacking in the afternoon. "Is that so?" Xie Baichen's face darkened slightly. "I didn't know she was so reckless. If you don't like it, I'll talk to her another day and make her leave happily." Yan Danqing is a model for Xie's Nishang agency. She has been in the industry for a while and admires Xie Baichen very much. However, Xie Baichen has been busy in the group all year round, so there is no time to pay attention to her. Yan Danqing couldn't get close to her several times, but accidentally met Xie Baichen's friend Xie Baichen. Xie Baichen saw that Yan Danqing was beautiful, and Xie Baichen liked it. He made a gesture of goodwill and invited Xie Baichen to come and see the company's new outfit launch event. Yan Danqing was very good at seizing the opportunity. When it came to the swimsuit display round, she dressed in a bikini and swayed towards Xie Baichen twice. Seeing a playful light in the man's eyes, she accidentally fell off the rooftop. This mistake is the standard princess hug. Yan Danqing snuggled up in Xie Baichen's arms and accidentally brushed the peach gold lipstick against his snow-white shirt collar. She pretended to prop up her body to help him wipe, but intentionally or unintentionally, she used her green fingers to scratch the blue blood vessels on his neck, while her soft body rubbed against his chest like bones were gone. Xie Baichen immediately understood. The trick that a woman comes up with sometimes really surprises him. If he falls from such a high place and wants to slip his hand, shouldn't she be disabled? Xie Baichen pulled down the woman's delicate white willow arm, with a handsome smile in his eyes and eyebrows. "You're still walking on the stage. Be careful when you turn around, your agent will scold you." "Not afraid." Yan Danqing blinked at him. "Anyway, it's in Xie Shao's arms." Xie Baichen smiled and carried her back to the rooftop, saying, "Take care to finish the show. I'll take you to eat tonight." Yan Danqing was overjoyed. Even though there were already jealous gazes on stage and behind the scenes, she walked with an especially enchanting pace, just like no one else. After this accident, Xie Baichen got up and had to leave. Xie Baichen, who was sitting next to him, was very strange. "Didn't you watch the show behind?" "No more." Xie Baichen looked at him with a deep gaze. "I'm afraid that those behind me will follow suit and crush my small body." Xie Baichen couldn't help but burst out laughing. "It's your little boy's idea, right?" Xie Baichen nudged Xie Baichen's chest with his elbow. I'm not usually interested in these performances, but today I'm very interested in them. Let me tell you, what benefits did the little girl give you? No way. Xie Baichen followed Xie Baichen out of the venue and said as they walked, it's just that she's eager to find a chance to get to know you and kind enough to help. If you like it, I'll be the beauty of it. If you don't like it, it's not difficult to dismiss it casually. Xie Baichen sneered and remained silent. That night, Black Bugatti stopped at the main entrance of the venue on time. When Yan Danqing came out, the glass window slowly fell down. Xie Baichen's handsome and wicked eyebrows and eyes curved into an inverted arc through the hazy mist of the night, saying, Miss Yan, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Yan Danqing hooked her handbag, bent down, and her slightly curled hair drifted into the car window. Her delicate and gentle voice was just like this hair, stirring people's hearts. Thank you, I've been waiting for you too for a long time. I don't know if it's an illusion, but when Xie Baichen heard this, he always felt something profound. But before he could think it over, Yan Danqing had already opened the passenger door. Since then, Yan Danqing has been automatically transferred to Xie Baichen's side by insiders, becoming his new love. Xie Baichen pondered over Yan Danqing's beauty and coquettishness, naturally understanding how to please Xie Baichen. However, listening to Xie Baichen's tone at the moment, he didn't seem to like him so much. He was afraid that he might have done something wrong with his good intentions. He looked into his friend's unfathomable eyes and tentatively said, why don't you find an excuse to leave later, and I'll come and work with Yan Danqing. She's so knowledgeable that she won't just rely on not leaving. However, if someone else's innocent girl follows you, it's inevitable to pay some comfort money. Xie Baichen's eyes froze and he said, what pacification fee? I didn't ruin her innocence. Xie Baichen was taken aback. The two of them had been together for at least a month. Would someone like Xie Baichen, a beast-like figure, not touch her? Why are you looking at me like this? I'm telling the truth. Xie Baichen took a snack plate and threw 2 peanuts into his mouth. Their small painting is flawless and clean. If they really separate, would it be better for me? It's another 500,000 ransom and $1 million necklace. Xie Baichen was completely confused and at a loss, saying, so. What do you think? Yan Danqing. Keep it, Xie Baichen's eyes were deep, and he casually chewed on a peanut. Anyway, that girl is really beautiful. It's good to keep her eyes on her. Coincidentally, Yan Danqing came out after washing her hands and smiled sweetly at the two of them. Charming big eyes with flowing ripples, the shallow pear vortex carries its own charm. Even a man like Xie Baichen who doesn't touch flowers and plants has to admit that this woman is really pleasing to the eye. Come and eat. Xie Baichen opened his position next to him and waved to Yan Danqing. Then he shouted to Xiacheng, who had been focused on reading, old boat, let go of the books in your hand. Reading is not enough. Since I entered the door, you haven't even said hello. Are you planning to break ties with me? Thank you for loving moments and eternal recommended tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Treasures of Xiacheng Chamber of Commerce. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Treasures of Xiacheng Chamber of Commerce. Xiacheng put down his book and sat over with a warm smile. The children of the aristocratic family showed a sense of nobility and estrangement in their every move and gesture. I see that you have a good conversation, so it's not easy to disturb you. I can't get in touch with what you're saying. Xie Baichen poured some wine for Xiacheng and Xie Baichen, and then poured juice for Yan Danqing. He joked, if you come over, we'll change the topic. The 4 books and 5 classics, will you talk? Xiacheng smiled and said, I know you're talented and knowledgeable, don't show off. Yan Danqing bit her chopsticks and turned her head curiously. Does this charming playboy still understand these things? Go eat your meal, he's joking. Xie Baichen rubbed her head and put a shrimp in her bowl. After 2 rounds of drinking, Xie Baichen started talking about the hottest topic in the business district recently. I heard that the election for the president of the Xiacheng Chamber of Commerce has been set for January 18 next year, with half a year left. The old president is busy preparing. Xiang Qinzhou had nothing to do with himself and focused on eating. Xie Baichen tapped on the back of his hand and asked, "What are your Xiang family planning? Are you going to participate in the competition?" Xiang Qinzhou said indifferently, "If I don't participate, my 2 older brothers will focus on expanding their overseas careers. They haven't been in Xiacheng for many years, so how can they have time to participate in that kind of thing?" Xie Baichen thought so and asked Xie Baichen, "What about you? Are you interested?" "Me." Xie Baichen pointed his chopsticks at himself and chuckled, "I'm just a small advertising company. What competition do I have? It would be great if I could bring Biaolan's performance to a new level earlier." Xie Baichen is telling the truth. Unlike Xie Baichen and Xiang Qinzhou, he doesn't have a good family background. He comes from an ordinary background, and his parents are both ordinary working class. He relied on hard work to get into a prestigious school. After graduation, he opened an advertising company called Biaolan. In the first year or 2, life was very difficult. Xie Baichen, as a college classmate, helped him a lot, and many Xie's advertisements were directly done for him, so Biaolan gradually got on the right track. Why underestimate yourself? Until the end, no one knows who the real winner is. Xie Baichen took a sip and said, "Isn't my Luyun pavilion also a small business?" Xie Baichen smiled bitterly. Can Biaolan compare with Lu Yunxian? No matter how they say it, there is a strong Xie family behind it as support, but once he finishes playing, it's really over. Don't embarrass yourself. Xie Baichen waved his hand in a casual manner. Finally, the conversation changed. "However, Baichen, if you're competing, I'll support you." Xie Baichen smiled and said, "I heard that the competition this time is particularly fierce. Just by speaking up, there are the Wei, Fang, and Shen families. Which time is it not so intense?" Xiang Qinzhou continued, "I can be a leading figure in the Xiacheng commercial district and also benefit from the fairy Xi spirit, the treasure of the town. Those who engage in business are not very interested, right? Even someone who specializes in academic circles knows a thing or two about him." Speaking of the treasure of the town, Yan Danqing, who had been eating silently, became a bit curious. "What is the treasure of the town of the Summer City Chamber of Commerce?" Her crisp voice caused several men to interrupt the conversation. Xiang Qinzhou smiled warmly and explained, "It's unknown. The only one who can see the treasure of the town with his own eyes is the president himself. Since the establishment of the Xiacheng Chamber of Commerce, there have been 3 presidents, but they have kept their mouths shut about that treasure. Some say it's a masterpiece of calligraphy and painting masters from the late Qing dynasty, while others say it's priceless Ming dynasty porcelain. However, these are all rumors circulating in the public, and no one knows the truth. Can't even sneak a glance." Yan Danqing widened her eyes. "I can't see it. The town club treasure is stored in the Chamber of Commerce's secret room, and the password is passed from the previous president to the next president. Except for the president himself, other relatives are not allowed to enter. If you break in privately, you may be hit by the mechanism inside, and whether you can survive is a problem. Moreover, it is said that the town club treasure is too mysterious, afraid of causing trouble, and the president will not easily bring relatives into the secret room. Therefore, some people say that another responsibility of the president is to protect the town club treasure, so the competitors of the Summer City Chamber of Commerce must be companies registered locally." Xiang Qinzhou already has a rich background in poetry and books. When telling stories, he is very attractive and vivid, which even captivates Yan Danqing. "Xie Shao, then hurry up and run for election. If you become the president, describe to me the true appearance of the town's treasure." Yan Danqing said eagerly. Xie Baichen was speechless and was about to knock on her head, saying that her imagination was wild. The door to the private room rang, and the waiter came in to serve the dishes. The dishes that blend water and sky are very exquisite, and the dish arrangement is also very particular. During the busy period of the waiters, the door of the private room is open, and waves of insults come in from outside. Damn it, why bother pretending to be aloof when you come to work here? I'll give you money to buy something happy, and you'll come and sit down, pushing around and insisting that I take it seriously, right? Yan Danqing listened as he put down his chopsticks, and Xie Baichen looked out curiously. The waiter was very embarrassed and quickly accelerated the speed of serving. What's going on outside? Xiacheng frowned, unable to hear these vulgar words. It's from the Shen family. Drinking too much and causing trouble is unreasonable. The manager has already rushed to mediate. The waiter didn't dare to say much and briefly said a few words, but his eyes kept looking at Xie Baichen. Xie Baichen felt unusual and squinted his eyes, asking, who can't get along with the Shen family? They shout and scream. The waiter's lips moved, but he dared not speak. This statement must be another stir, the lobby manager insisted on killing her. Xie Baichen's face darkened a few times as he saw her stuttering. Xie Baichen on one side saw her and quickly changed his expression, saying, Shao Xie, what else can I keep from you? Speak up quickly. Yes. It's Miss Zhu, the head of the public relations department. The waiter lowered his head and didn't dare to look at Xie Baichen's quickly cooling gaze. Originally, Mr. Shen came to find someone else, but by chance, Miss Zhu brought a few newly hired girls to the cashier to handle the procedures. Suddenly, they bumped into each other. Mr. Shen was used to being domineering, and seeing that Miss Zhu was beautiful, he thought to himself and insisted that someone go to his private room. Miss Zhu refused, so the two of them started arguing outside. As soon as the three words, Miss Zhu, were spoken, Xie Baichen and Xiacheng's cold sweat rustled down. 9 out of 10 people who constantly move in and out of the same color all year round know that the person named Zhu Sha is Xie Baichen. This will move their hearts to him, and the person surnamed Shen is also living impatiently. Take a look. Xie Baichen patted his chopsticks heavily and got up and walked out of the door. The remaining 3 people followed suit one after another. Before we reached the front porch, we saw a half-circle of people around the flower hall. It was unclear what was moving inside, but the lobby manager's accompanying laughter was unusually clear. Mr. Shen, it's not that Miss Zhu doesn't give face, it's just that Mr. Xie's confidant can't move. Otherwise, your tonight's consumption will be counted as mine, and I'll pick a few more good-looking ones for you to send in. Young master, I have to do with her today. Shen Zifeng, the second child of the Shen family, said arrogantly in his voice. What's wrong with Mr. Xie's person? Are you spoiling her? Even if I bring her home tonight, that Xie wouldn't dare to fart. Try carrying one. The man's deep and powerful voice pierced through the wall and reached the center of the encirclement. Everyone felt a chill on their backs and stepped aside one after another. The lobby manager's eyes darkened when he saw the newcomer. Oh my, tonight's business can be considered unnecessary. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Xie Shao's kindness to yourself in the afternoon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Xie Shao's kindness to yourself in the afternoon. Dragged by Shen Zifeng, the irritable cinnabar was considering whether to simply slap the dead pig head to death. Unexpectedly, a familiar and pleasant voice came from the man. Xie Baichen. As soon as Cinnabar's eyes lit up, her face immediately showed a hint of injustice after being bullied. She stumbled a few steps and ran toward Xie Baichen. Thank you, sir. As Cinnabar curled up and ran halfway, she suddenly ran into Yan Danqing following behind the man. Ah, Xie Shao is leading a woman. Cinnabar's eyes froze. Is she continuing to run or not? Xie Baichen extended his long arm and pulled the somewhat sluggish cinnabar behind him. He paced a few steps and walked up to Shenzifeng. I heard Mr. Shen is very interested in my woman. Xie Baichen smiled rather than smiled, with a faint coldness in his eyes. He had a relaxed posture, but the hostility emanating from his body couldn't be ignored. Even the lobby manager 10 steps away felt the strong displeasure emanating from inside out. Shenzifeng felt a bit nervous, but he felt a bit confident when he thought of his back against the wealthy Shen family. Is that woman yours? He gestured a few times in the direction of the cinnabar he was standing in. Did she have your name written on her? Take it off and let me take a look. Ahem. Before Shenzifeng could finish speaking, he felt like he had been kicked hard in the stomach, and when he regained his senses, his whole body had fallen 2 meters away. Thunderbolt, a few bottles of foreign wine fell from the crooked wine cabinet, spilling all over the ground and splashing wet Shenzifeng's exquisite clothes. Yan Danqing gasped for breath and couldn't help but cover her lips. I can't tell Xie Baichen, he doesn't speak too harshly. Looking at Cinnabar again, there was a hint of envy in her eyes. Admire and admire, as soon as you appear, you can make Xie Shao take action. In the future, she will learn from this sister well. Shenzifeng coughed twice and struggled to stand up after climbing for a long time. His greasy face was full of embarrassment. When would anyone dare to treat him like this, the young master of the Shen family? Are you damn blind? Can't you see who I am? If you dare to fight with Grandpa, I'll make you leave the summer city tomorrow. Ji Weihan and Xiang Qinzhou sighed silently. You really don't know what to do, what about tomorrow? If you offend Xie Baichen, let's live through today first. Sure enough, a few sturdy men who came out of nowhere were greeted around, dressed in a uniform black outfit, which looked very unpleasant at first glance. Shenzifeng saw that the momentum was not right, so he turned his head and wanted to run. But he couldn't hide anywhere. A few men pressed him back to the ground without saying a word, bowing to his greasy face. Give Xie Shao another scolding, if you can't speak, shut up. The leading man sternly warned, slapping Shenzifeng's face without any mercy. Shenzifeng's lips soon showed blood. The people around were in pain, so the lobby manager covered his eyes directly. Yan Danqing's heart was pounding, and she remembered how she had risked her life to show Xie Baichen that afternoon. Looking back at the current situation, she couldn't help but clasp her hands and thank the heavens. Lord, Xie Shao was so kind to himself this afternoon. Shenzifeng was beaten to the ground, half unconscious and unable to speak clearly. Xie Baichen slowly walked up to him and looked at the man's hand with a cold gaze. It was this hand that touched Cinnabar, right? He squinted his eyes and stepped on Shenzifeng's hand with one foot. Ah! In the front hall, Shenzifeng's pig-killing howl sounded, and for a moment, the lively scene became completely silent. He can't die, let someone send him back to the Shen family, Xie Baichen said to the lobby manager with a dull expression in his eyes. If the Shen family asks, let them directly come to me. After he finished speaking, he walked back to Cinnabar's side, ignoring his wary eyes and asking, have you eaten yet? He asked with concern, his soft tone being completely different from what he had just said. Cinnabar shook her head. Add a pair of bowls and chopsticks, then bring over the menu. Xie Baichen walked towards the private room with Cinnabar and instructed the waiter. The waiter was busy and went to handle it. Xie Baichen returned to the private room and took the opportunity to open his seat next to him. He asked Cinnabar to sit down and said, what do you want to eat? You can order it yourself. After saying this, he said to the waiter who followed, first, bring a pot of hot tea. Miss Zhu, you are surprised. Drink some hot tea to warm up your body. Yan Danqing, who followed up later, looked speechless. That place was originally where she sat, but now Xie Baichen had already put her bowls and chopsticks aside and replaced them with new ones. Cinnabar sat in her seat, where did she sit? Xie Baichen gave a blue glance to his face, gesturing for her to sit next to him. At such moments, don't rush to trouble yourself. After eating for 15 minutes, Cinnabar regained her composure. She was naturally charming, with long sleeves and good dancing skills. She was very amusing, and a few words made several people present feel happy. For the little rival, sitting at the same table, Zhu Sha didn't have any difficulty. On the contrary, she generously greeted her to eat and took care of her taste when ordering. Yan Danqing thought to herself, oh my, this is really a grand family style. No wonder Xie Baichen likes her. While several men were out smoking, Yan Danqing approached Cinnabar with a mischievous expression and said, Sister Cinnabar, do you know what Xie Shao likes? You've been following him for quite some time, can't you tell, said Zhu Sha with a smile. Yan Danqing was confused, but she didn't even notice. Good sister, you tell me, I'll remember it with my heart. After she finished speaking, she carefully retrieved her phone memo. After thinking for a moment, Zhu Sha said, besides work, it's all about drinking tea, playing chess, and reading books. Yan Danqing remembered and felt something was wrong. How could these be the hobbies of Feng Lujun Shao? Shouldn't Cinnabar be deceiving her? She left a dim sum and tried to say. Since Xie Shao likes all the things of these literati, how can you please him, sister? Me, Cinnabar pointed to herself, somewhat amused. Yan Danqing nodded in admiration, I just saw that Xie Shao is outside and you are very protective of Sister Cinnabar. At first glance, you look extremely spoiled. Cinnabar waved her hand and smiled lightly, then you haven't seen the one who is more favored before. Yan Danqing held her heart and almost got drunk. She thought Xie Baichen's deep anger when he started to fight for Cinnabar was already extreme, but she didn't expect there to be a stranger behind him. Thinking of the ransom of 500,000 yuan in the afternoon, I suddenly felt like I was low in the dust. As they spoke, the men had already returned. When Zhu Sha saw Xie Baichen wearing a coat, she smiled delicately and said, is Xie Shao leaving? Almost done. Xie Baichen looked at his watch. I haven't thanked you for the trouble Shen Zifeng caused me at night, said Zhu Sha, biting her lips red and taking a few steps closer to Xie Baichen. Xie Baichen's eyes deepened and he said, how do you thank me? Cinnabar pointed at his sleeve and shyly said, it's not convenient here, thank you next door. The man remained silent and allowed her to pull and tug out of the private room, entering another room. Then, the door was tightly closed. Yan Danqing's eyes straightened. I'm not mistaken, she's still here. This scumbag Xie Baichen kindly patted the leather sofa and said to the stunned Yan Danqing, sit down and play with your phone. It will take Baichen a while to finish, wait. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Little Cute Pet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Little Cute Pet. Yan Danqing returned to the apartment at 1 o'clock in the morning. She threw herself onto the soft big bed, so tired that she didn't want to move. Sitting in the private room from 10 o'clock to almost 12 o'clock, her buttocks are almost flat. Xie Baichen, that scumbag, doesn't seem to last so long. She rubbed her long hair, propped her eyelids up, and went to the bathroom to take a shower. Before the water was ready, her phone rang outside. Yan Danqing's eyes froze, and a few dark hues flashed through her eyes. She walked out and watched the 3 words, Little Bandit, jumping on the screen. She pinched her brows, tightened the curtains, and then pressed her phone to her ear, giving a faint hello. Miss Dan, the voice on the other end of the phone was cautious, didn't I hurt you this afternoon? No, Yan Danqing glanced at the red circle on her wrist being pulled by the rope. But why are you tying it so tightly? I don't really know how to run. It's my fault, it's my fault. I was thinking of letting go of you, but to my surprise, Xie Baichen and the others came over. I wasn't in a hurry to act, so I forgot about it. The little bandit's head was sweating, regretful for his poor performance. Forget it, I know you're sincere, I didn't argue with you. Yan Danqing relaxed his tone and didn't scare anyone anymore. The real name of the bandit is Lu Fifan. He has a loyal and honest personality, but his appearance is rough, with a hint of ruthlessness. Therefore, when Yan Danqing wanted to test his position in Xie Baichen's heart, he was the first to think of letting Lu Fifan kidnap him. Seeing that Yan Danqing didn't blame him, Lu Fifan breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Thank you, Miss Dan. You're the best person. By the way, that 500,000 yuan. Which account would be better for me to transfer to you?" Yan Danqing looked at the sky in silence. Xie Baichen exuded a shrewd energy all over his body. He was so arrogant when dealing with the young master of the Shen family in front of others, and there was some unknown trick behind it. If he discovers that he has inexplicably deposited 500,000 yuan into his account, it is inevitable that he will associate it with kidnapping. If she wants this money, isn't it equivalent to digging a hole and jumping on her own? Moreover, Yan Danqing didn't care about this petty gain. "You can keep it as pocket money for yourself, don't give it to me anymore." "Really?" The little bandit was overjoyed. He only received such a high salary for a 3-hour performance, and the actor's salary was not as high as his. "Well, but please remember to take a look around the residential building tomorrow and see if there are any remaining cameras. If there are, destroy the records for me as soon as possible. I look like a ghost with makeup on, so don't let anyone else see me." She is a beauty lover, and thinking about her face in the afternoon makes her heart palpitate. If I had known earlier, I would have used waterproof makeup. It's going to spread and she doesn't need to live anymore. Okay. The little bandit nodded like pounding garlic. "Wrap it around me, Miss Dan, don't worry." Yan Danqing yawned lazily and said, "Then I'll hang up. I still have to go to work tomorrow. If there's anything I need to do, I'll contact you. Don't come to me if there's nothing else, goodbye." He then cut off the call. Lying in bed at night, Yan Danqing was clearly tired, but couldn't fall asleep for half a day. "I originally intended to use kidnapping to test my position in Xie Baichen's heart, but I didn't expect to feel depressed." Thinking about Cinnabar, and then considering Xie Baichen's attitude towards herself, she vaguely felt that there were no good ideas or means, and she really couldn't let Xie Baichen take care of her heart and lungs. That man is a bit hard to see through. Being interested in her, but it's not necessary for her, willing to buy expensive gifts to coax her, but not allowing her to act recklessly, she was like a cute pet raised beside him. When she was happy, she took it out and hugged him affectionately. When she wasn't happy, she threw it back into her nest and went on her own. "Ha!" Yan Danqing sneered. She didn't come all the way to be his little plaything. When Yan Danqing woke up in the morning, there was still a hint of blue in her eyes. Just 6 hours is not enough for her to sleep in beauty sleep. Looking at her slightly lifeless eyes in the mirror, she rubbed her long hair in frustration. Why did she choose a modeling job that was both hard and irregular when she first came to Xiacheng? Struggling to drive to Nishang, I was told as soon as I entered that a business performance had been arranged for lunch. It is common for newcomers like her, who have just entered the industry and are not well known, to take on unplanned work, so when Tony handed her a notice, she just let out a mournful cry and swallowed the bitter water as she entered the dressing room. Tony is the veteran agent of Nishang, who not only has a few well-known models in his hands, but also takes care of the training of new talents. All new hires of Nishang are under his unified management before they become successful. At this moment, the man rolled up his sleeves, busy inside and outside, wishing he could be used by 2 people alone. Yan Danqing sat listlessly in front of the makeup mirror, closed her eyes, and handed herself over to the makeup artist. Although her complexion was a little poor, it was better than her foundation. The makeup artist applied a little powder blusher, and her cheeks immediately showed an attractive color. She lazily rested, her long eyelashes trembling lightly, and her hair drooping lightly. The slightly noisy environment did not affect her release of a peaceful and elegant atmosphere. Haha. Wang Anqi, who was sitting next door on the dressing table, snorted coldly to herself. I was exhausted early in the morning, who knows what I did last night. This woman played high altitude falling on her first runway show, and at first glance she looked like a fox spirit. Yan Danqing's trick of getting to know Xie Baichen was in front of everyone, and at that time, a group of young models in Xiacheng were both surprised and jealous. As a hot man in the summer city, it is not easy to get along well with him, let alone become someone around him directly. For a while, Yan Danqing successfully gained a lot of hatred points for himself. Half an hour later, their makeup was almost done, and Wang Anqi saw that Yan Danqing was still asleep, so she mysteriously approached her. Danqing, she reached out to touch the woman's arm, do you seem particularly tired today? Be attentive to nothing, neither deceit nor theft. I have never been familiar with Wang Anqi, so suddenly showing concern for her must be ill-intentioned. Sure enough, last night, someone saw you and Shao going to the same place. Shao is really good to you, and he is willing to take you to such a high-end place. Yan Danqing listened to the sourness in Wang Anqi's words and sneered inwardly. Not bad, I took her specifically to see how he treats other women well. Wang Anqi's gossiping mood intensified when she saw Yan Danqing not speaking. Ah, she leaned closer to her ear, is it because Xiao's physical strength is too good that you can't bear it like this? In the future, you must let him relax a bit, men can't overdraw too much. Yan Danqing's apricot eyes suddenly opened, and there was a hint of coldness in the flowing autumn water. You care about him so much, why don't you apply to be his butler? After saying that, she got up and changed her seat, too lazy to listen to Wang Anqi's noise. You. Wang Anqi's nose almost twisted with anger. Pull something. Who wouldn't know that Xie Baichen has so many women like the stars in the sky? If her Yan Danqing were favored, would she still struggle to stand still like her, becoming an unknown little model? It's just a little plaything in the palm of a man's hand, she's already in the sky, hiss. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The Warmest Man in the World. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 10. The warmest man in the world. Yan Danqing changed her seat and wanted to continue sleeping, but her stomach growled, making it impossible for her to fall asleep. She looked around and saw that Tony had no time to attend to her, so she secretly leaned against the wall and prepared to sneak out to buy breakfast. As soon as her slender body stood up, she was immediately stopped by a human wall. Ha! Yan Danqing was startled and looked up, just in time to meet Qi Xian's smiling eyes. The man looks very sunny, with a healthy wheat-colored skin, soft facial lines, and when he smiles, his eyes are like two clear springs. Unlike Yan Danqing, Qi Xian entered the industry early and accumulated a wave of popularity. In the talented Xiacheng, ordinary people would respect him as a senior. However, Qi Xian is very easygoing and doesn't put on airs. He takes good care of newly hired employees. When Yan Danqing first entered Xiacheng, he took care of many things and taught them voluntarily. When Yan Danqing saw that it was Qi Xian, his restless heart finally let go and said, "Darling, use your strong body to act as a human wall for me. I didn't have breakfast. When Tony asked me later, you said I went to the bathroom." Watching Yan Danqing's sneaky and ghostly appearance, Qi Xian couldn't help but laugh. Nowadays, almost everyone in Xiacheng knows about her relationship with Xie Baichen. Even if Tony finds out she's slacking off, he won't give Xie Baichen face. How could he really blame her? Thinking of the man who was wealthy and promiscuous, Qi Xian's eyes flashed with a hint of darkness, but he quickly concealed it. With one hand holding on to Yan Danqing, who wanted to take the opportunity to escape, Qi Xian stuffed a breakfast into her hand. Yan Danqing was taken aback and instinctively opened the bag. The shrimps with soybean milk are still steaming. The woman's taste buds were immediately seduced, disregarding the lipstick she had already applied. She lowered her head and took a bite of Xiaomai, squinting her eyes with satisfaction and saying, "Delicious. Xian, you are really the warmest man in the world." Xian remained silent, smiling slightly as he watched Yan Danqing eat. "Danqing, you're not from Xiacheng, are you?" he asked cautiously when she swallowed 2 barbecue dishes and wasn't so hungry. Yan Danqing clasped her chopsticks tightly and answered calmly, "Not really." "Are your parents also with you in the summer city?" "No." Yan Danqing said calmly, "My father passed away shortly after I was born, and my mother has to take care of her sick brother, staying in her hometown." Xian nodded, his eyes tinged with sympathy. According to Danqing's tone, it should have come from a small place with traditional customs. Thinking about her relationship with Xie Baichen, Xian insinuated, "Danqing, I guess if Auntie knew that you were following Xie Baichen in the summer city, she might not be able to agree. The elderly have relatively conservative thoughts." Yan Danqing put down the soybean milk in his hand, raised his eyelids and looked at him intently. When Xian saw this, he simply pointed it out and said, "You are so beautiful and have a good understanding. As long as you are willing to work hard, it will be sooner or later that you will shine brightly. Why not follow Xie Baichen?" Yan Danqing knew that Xian was doing her good and felt a strange touch in her heart, but she blinked and said, "I want to take a shortcut, is that also wrong?" Xian frowned deeply and said, "Xie Baichen is too promiscuous and not a worthy person to entrust. You are not deeply involved in the world now and are easily deceived. Danqing, if you are willing, I can introduce you to more resources. I still have some connections in the circle of Xia City, as long as—" Bang! The violent impact of the door panel abruptly interrupted Xian's earnest efforts. Yan Danqing was taken aback, and her gaze towards the door was slightly sharp. The noisy dressing room instantly quieted down, and everyone inexplicably looked at the smashed door. Tony was the first to react and immediately rushed over angrily, "Who is it? You don't even know how to push the door, do you? With so much force, smashing the scene, right?" He just walked up to the doorframe and his eyes paused in amazement. The 20th person came with a fierce force, and at first glance, it was not a good person. The leader was wearing a black shirt, with shiny hair combed and hands tucked into his pants, looking carefree. Tony only saw clearly when he reached the bright spot. The leader, isn't Zishi, the eldest son of the Shen family? Why did he run Nishang here? Is there still so much commotion? The models were whispering, not knowing what had happened. The newcomer was not kind, and everyone felt a little uneasy. Tony forced himself to remain calm, with a smile on his face, and greeted him, "How come Xiaoshen has time to come over?" Zishi didn't even bother to give him a glance, so she twitched her finger and saw a subordinate pick up Tony's collar and throw him directly out. "Ow!" Tony's painful moans came from outside the door, causing the models inside to panic. Zishi summoned a subordinate to whisper a few words, and then saw the other person with a calm face say fiercely, "Men, get out of here, women, stay." Everyone was taken aback, unsure of what trick Zishi was going to play. Seeing no one moving, the subordinate directly smashed the decorative glass with the iron rod in his hand and said, "If you don't get out of here, the brothers will come and invite you in person." "Ah!" the timid woman exclaimed directly, while the male models fled one after another. "Danqing." Xian reached out and pulled Yan Danqing back, feeling very uneasy about her staying here. "You go first, meet Tony when you go out, and have him tell Su Jing immediately that Nishang has an accident." Yan Danqing had no expression on her small face, but her tone was calm. "Then you." Xian hesitated a bit. "I'm fine, there are so many women here, so the young villain shouldn't have killed our group," Yan Danqing said, pushing Xian and gesturing for him to leave quickly. Thinking that he might be able to move to the rescue team as soon as he left, Xian advised him to be careful and ran out of the dressing room with the others. The remaining women huddled together, each desperately trying to reduce their presence. Shen Zishi saw that the room was half empty, so he leisurely pulled up a chair and sat down. He crossed his legs and raised his eyebrows, asking, "Which of you is Xie Baichen's woman?" Yan Danqing was taken aback, wasn't she? Looking for her. She doesn't know this person. The models remained silent, but someone had already glanced at Yan Danqing. Shen Zishi sneered. I advise you not to worry about the so-called sisters' relationship. To tell you the truth, if you can't find Xie Baichen's woman today, I will burn you all with a fire and see how you can show off on the overpass in the future. His fierce expression didn't seem like he was joking, and immediately someone couldn't resist it. Wang Anqi and Yan Danqing stood in a straight line, and upon hearing this, they took a big step back without hesitation. It's clearly Yan Danqing's fault, why should she be implicated along with her? She usually follows Xie Xiaoguang, and when big trouble comes, she naturally bears it alone, so she won't foolishly suffer together. As soon as Wang Anqi withdrew, others followed suit. Usually, when people don't talk, they are all jealous in their hearts. Now that an enemy comes to their door, they naturally push Yan Danqing forward, not to mention that she is already Xie Xiao's person. So, Yan Danqing inexplicably became the one who stood out. Looking at the empty left and right, the woman was speechless for a moment. I'm not mistaken, I didn't see this group of people being too united on a regular basis. Unexpectedly, they are surprisingly consistent in deceiving her. End of this chapter.